So I'm not sure why that happened, family. Give me a second. I'm trying to see if I can get Yolanda Pulley back on so we can continue. Not sure why it just did that. That's really weird. Um, but and again, we'd love to hear from you at any time. Folks, you can uh, reach out and join us in the chat, and I will share the information in a minute if you'd like to come live with us. I know it seems like just a drag evening. I mean, for us, we've been just, I'm telling you, if you knew what we've been through in reference to the conversations, um, addressing families and what's going on out here in Baltimore City, um, you would understand why we are kind of stressed at this point. Give me a second here. Um, Sometimes it just makes you just want to throw your hands up and holler. Um, but and I'm not sure why the broadcast dropped out the way that it did. Sometimes there's issues with StreamYard that's out of our control. So hopefully she will join us in a second. And let me share the information, because if you'd love to join us on StreamYard, maybe there's something going on in your community, in your area, in your neck of the woods that you would love to come on and talk about. So I had the opportunity on Thursday to attend the confirmation hearing of Richard Worley and the new fire chief, and just I had so many concerns. I had an opportunity to testify against the confirmation. I asked the city council to vote a no vote of confidence vote and send it back to the mayor's office, and force the mayor to truly pick someone in reference to both the police commissioner as well as the fire chief, that the people really uh, resonate to. Um, Matter of fact, after the hearing was over with, I had a chance to speak to several city council members, including a shouting match brewed out between me and Christopher Pett of the 8th District in reference to the aerial surveillance program. He wanted to call it the spy plane and tried to call me out in the chambers of City Hall in reference to it. But I had an opportunity to speak to several council members after that were a part of the committee that really said that Richard Worley wasn't their choice. As a matter of fact, I heard the name Sabrina Briscoe be brought up. At
That's the
you
one
know
that they wanted.
that's the one that they
Everybody
were,
wanted Briscoe.
and I kept saying some of the same things. Like to me, I want to see Baltimore City break the glass ceiling in reference to equity is concerned. And we know that this administration came into City Hall, with a good conversation and a good talk of holding things or presenting things or even investigating things to make sure that everything in City Hall was equitable. But yet here it is, we see two white people, um, in charge of two of the biggest departments in Baltimore City. Now, again, this is not about a black or white issue. What this is, though,
Isn't it? Isn't it?
well, that's
Please.
when you look at the
Yes, it
history of
is.
the department. When you look at the history of the department, the departments, both the police department and the fire department, has been ran by mostly, white folks. You know, and yeah, we've broken the glass ceiling in reference to black males representing both of these
Wait a
departments
minute, I'm up
because
here in Park
are
Heights.
actually
Wait a minute, I'm up here in Park Heights, right? And I'm still looking up here at 4 police cars and 6 officers standing up here just congregating, just having a lollygag good time, like we don't have real crime being committed in the city. When 1, 2, 3, 4 cars, yeah, 6 officers up in Park Heights, and they just standing there having casual conversation. The slap your knee type funny thing going on. Like,
right,
what are we doing here?
right. So I was saying that we've had black police commissioners, black fire chiefs, we've definitely had, there's been, the majority of the police department and fire department have been white commanders and white chiefs, white police commissioners for the
I want
longest.
everybody to be as critical with this worldly guy as everybody was with Lieutenant. I mean, with Harrison. Because
Right.
if I don't see that type of attack, I'm gonna be pissed. You know why? Because that means that we're still suffering in a slave mentality, where we don't mind publicly lynching black people, but we won't do it to white people.
I don't know. I said at the confirmation hearing that Richard Worley has a history in the Northeast District, and to me, he's never said anything about the Gun Trace Task Force. He's never said anything about Nicholas Chapman. He never said anything, in reference to these officers that Officer Ruiz, officers, the officers involved in Anthony Anderson's death, Abdul Salam's brutal beating. There was so much going on in that Northeast District. Um, and then I had to point out to City Council, well, maybe this is his MO. Maybe this is how Richard Worley is, because we've seen what took place in reference to Brooklyn Homes, and it seems like no action was taken in reference to ensuring the public safety in Brooklyn Homes. So is this is this what we are to expect from a Richard Worley confirmation? Someone who sits back, sees no evil, hears no evil, speaks no evil, type of mentality that doesn't engage when necessary, to address public safety in our community. Like, I think what you're going to see is the same old, same old. It's no different than Michael Harrison to Richard Worley.
Well, unfortunately, these people are still apart, and they knew about the corruption and the racism in our police department. And nobody chose to do anything about it. They still chose, regardless of the color of the leadership, they still chose to stick with the good old boy system. And now we have one that's sitting directly over top of us. What do we do about it now? If we don't agree on it, I think that we need to start protesting these type of actions. We do not want Worley. They need to learn how to respect our no. And we're not getting respect. When we tell you we don't want these people, or we don't want certain things, and you go against the wishes of the people and do it anyway, that should be considered political homicide. That should be death to your seat.
There's a lot of people that I spoke to afterwards that said, why didn't the mayor present a plethora of candidates, a field of candidates to be questioned by the community and community groups, and for them to then respond back to the mayor's office and say, this is what we wanted. This sounds like a great candidate. He answered our questions. This sounds like a great person that
First of all, he could have. Wait a minute. First of all, he could have. What any mayor could have done was did a survey on the candidates that he was actually looking at, and asked people to vote on who they would like to see as police.
I don't think there was anybody else but Worley. Again, we heard it from Commissioner Michael Harrison that he was basically hand selected and put through the best policing courses and constitutional policing.
So basically, he's seen it coming. And see, that's another thing. That's another thing that I don't agree with.
Right.
Before the confirmation, they had already decided on who they wanted, because why would they make this man uproot his life from where he was living at to make him live in Baltimore City? Is he required to even live in Baltimore City anymore? Did they change something? Because no one said that he ever moved in the city. So these are like turmoil, irrational decision making when it comes down to our elected officials. Like, they need to do their job and listen to the people, and not the ones that's pulling the purse strings.
Right. He was definitely in violation of the residency policy. There is a residency policy.
I know. I told you about it. Remember, I told you he violated it when he was the deputy commissioner.
Correct.
I mean, whatever he was, because he never lived in the city, and that was a requirement when he
So
took that
holds an
job, he
high
was
ranking
supposed to live in the
position.
city. So
Correct.
they're displaying unethical behavior before they even take the seat, and then
Right.
they still get it.
Well, it's the same thing in reference to the fire chief. The fire chief as well was not in compliance. He's a resident of Pennsylvania, and he's also not in compliance. And what I'm really getting tired of, Yolanda, is I'm getting tired of folks only wanting to patronize Baltimore City, or in some cases being forced to come to Baltimore City when it's involving a high paying salary and a position of leadership or a position of power. And someone kind of schooled me this weekend. They said, that kind of action from someone is like someone who owns a restaurant in your community but won't eat the food out of the restaurant that they serve you. You know what I
Well,
mean? So you're willing
that's
to,
every Chinese store in Baltimore City.
right, you're willing to take our money, you're willing to serve us junk, but you're not willing to, in many cases, to live in our city. And then what does that say to the hardworking men and women that serve with honor, dignity, valor, candor? I can go on and on, respect, that don't have these issues like Richard Worley having an issue when he was a commander in the Northeast District, or even the fire chief who had a criminal record. And I was the only one that testified against the fire chief. Nobody else was in the room. Everybody had left. And I told him, I said, I know that I'm not the only one that's seen the Baltimore Sun, that's seen the articles in reference to the fire chief having a criminal history. I don't have an issue, technically with second chances. I'm a product. You're a product. We're products of second chances. But we're
Third,
also
fourth,
not
fifth,
trying
sixth.
to run and lead a department in the city. We're not trying to run the fire department. We're not trying to run the police department. And what does that say to the men and women that have kept their nose clean, that didn't come in with this criminal background, that lived in this city, that paid the price for raising their children in this city, living in this city, working in this city, having to thrive in this city, dealing with everything that goes on in our city? What does that say to those hardworking men and women that come out here and serve us every day, that don't mind eating from the restaurant from which they serve? You know what I mean?
I can tell you what it says. We don't care.
Yeah, yeah. And that they're willing to make special exceptions for when people are appointed, by the king, when the king, crowns, the next knight and the next noble, and it's appointed by the king, you know what I mean, without the say so of the people.
Again, Jason, what does that say to regular citizens that always kept their nose clean and did this, that, and the third, and they can't even get a job? They can't even get a job being with or without a record. They don't even have a job. What does that say to them? What does it say to the people who applied for these jobs and never got it? What does it say to our elected officials that we don't want an individual and you keep doing it anyway, and we don't speak out about it? What does that say? It says the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We are insane in Baltimore City.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'd love to hear from you if y'all want to join in. I did share the StreamYard. Y'all want to join in this evening's conversation again? We're kind of dragging on this wet, gloomy Monday evening. Because again, we're emotionally stressed. There's a lot of things that we've been dealing with, and again, we're not the type of people that like to showcase people's pain, and some of the things that we've had to address with this week, and over the last several weeks. Yolanda has had to hear some heart-wrenching testimony from mothers who have lost their children.
I am emotionally drained. I'm emotionally drained. And I swear, if it wasn't for my team, I probably would have been said, you know what, we can do this somewhere else, to people who appreciate us, to people who understand that, what it looks like to try to be a part of the solution and not the problem is so easy. We can go out there and make a bad decision early, but every day we choose not to do it. Every day we choose the people over our own pain, our own circumstances. Every day, we choose trauma over our own trauma. And what does that look like when you're not even like, if we don't vote differently, I promise you I'm moving to that Idaho state.
The Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, I like potatoes. You can do a lot with potatoes. You can boil them, you can bake them, you can fry them, you can fry dye, lay them on the side, put an onion in it, like, yeah, tomato soup. I mean, we can have rock soup. It's a lot that you can do with a potato. I don't mind going to a potato state.
I don't know. I don't know. I've been to other cities. I've lived in other cities, and I think that to me, Baltimore, to me, is that just the people alone, to me, are one of the greatest people that I've met. On in on this place called America. And when I see some of the struggles that families go through in this city, I realize
But
that
they have to help us help them.
there's
That's
some
the
of the
thing, Jason.
strongest and resilient people out there. It's just that, unfortunately, this city there's been this dividing line in this city of those who have and those who have not. And that gap continues to separate even wider.
But we know all this. But what are people doing to change it? Matter of fact, call in and let us know who are your selections when running. Can we get somebody to run in districts that's not even that look like they're going to be running unopposed? We cannot afford this in Baltimore City with the dynamics and everything that's going on. Not to mention, these people are going against us at a rapid rate. When we say no, they turn around and say, hey, you can't make a good decision for yourself, so I guess I'll do it for you. You don't want the bike lanes? Well, we want the bike lanes, so we feel like it's good for it feels good to Baltimore City, so we're just going to do it anyway. I'm tired of our collective no being ignored. I don't want to do no more protests. I don't want to do anything. If we're not talking about actually boycotting, don't call me to another protest.
Yeah. I had been stopped going to protest, and I think the last time that I really have gone to a protest was when we were protesting the school CEO. Um, you know, my thing is, yeah, protest is one component of what we should be doing, and we should be speaking out and shouting out, and angry, at what's happening. But I think at the same time, we got to exemplify what some of our old civil rights leaders like Lily Mae Jackson, did. She would address Annapolis. She would address the legislators. She would address the mayor at the time. She would address whoever needs to be addressed in reference to the issues of our community. If how many people showed up in reference to Richard Worley's confirmation, it was a few, and it was a lot of usual folks that were there, and I'm glad that they showed up. Of course, Tawanda Jones, who's always been standing out and speaking out in reference to her brother's death and cell blocks for crooked cops.
But Jason, the whole Baltimore City, knowing that the record that this man has and the stuff that he done sat back and watched, it's no way on God's green earth that every black community should not have been down at that hearing. I don't care if you could not fit in City Hall. You should have stood outside and said, we do not accept this. You should have did something. Our silence is consent. And now you're going to come to us complaining about all these, racist things that's going to potentially happen in our city, and you're going to want us to fix it when you allowed it to happen in the beginning. We should not be doing reactive. We should be doing proactive. This should be all this can be prevented if people learn how to open their mouth. Whose feelings are you hurting? These people are not your friends.
But in some cases they are. They are. It's not. Sometimes it's not even about. Sometimes it's not even about their friends. Sometimes it's about their lifestyle. I mean, we know there's too many folks that unfortunately their lifestyles are dependent on this current administration.
Yeah, but everybody, I'm talking about the people in the projects. I'm talking about communities where this is affected first.
Their livelihood is at stake. They could be evicted. They could be evicted.
We know what police brutality looks like. We know what police disparaging look like. We know what it all looks like. It's no way that any black person should have been home during that confirmation. It's no way that they should not have wrote letters, called their
City council
council
members.
person.
Right.
It's no way that
Right.
this should have been silent and this man got in.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when he made the comment. So, they had asked him, and I believe it was Tawanda Jones that had asked him at one of the confirmation meetings. So they brought him around and courted him around the community, for a town hall conversation with him. So they presented him to the community. And in one of the particular hearings or one of the particular meetings, they had asked him in reference to, him acknowledging whether or not he knew what was going on in the Northeast District. And Richard Worley turned around and said, well, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, well, it's impractical to think that you would know what's happening with 140 officers in the Northeast District, and bad cops don't act bad in front of good cops. And I'm like, what? Like, how could you not know what's going on? And again, I was part of an organization called Cop Watch, Baltimore chapter of Cop Watch, that I started in Baltimore to try to hold the police accountable. Shorty and Pam and a girl by the name of Bonnie and all them, they were with an organization called Cop Block. And it was a whole bunch of us that were assembling around the whole Tyrone West, the Abdullah Salam, the Anthony Anderson death. And we were reporting this stuff back to the Northeast District, to the commander.
Well, Jason, unfortunately, her comeback should have been, these were high profile cases.
Yeah.
It's no way that you couldn't have known unless
Right.
you just didn't care. That is
Right.
that is insane for somebody to say, well, it's I can't do this, that, and the third. When police brutality situation happen, it's plastered all over the news. It's running through every police district. So that is literally BS for him to sit up there and say that he didn't know what was going on when the case just is still not even over, because she's still out there protesting every Wednesday on West Wednesday. So I have low tolerance for the sugar honey iced tea and the BS in Baltimore City. That's why I said people have to do different. People have to do different.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's a, and I said it was a bunch of BS for him to say that, because again, with the sheer amount of complaints that were coming into the Northeast District, and we've had conversations with Matthew Horace, who wrote the book The Black and Blue, who talked about the thin blue line, the thin blue police line, and a lot of times that that thin blue line prevents officers, good officers, from crossing that line and coming out and speaking out and becoming whistleblowers. So I think that, and I said this at the confirmation hearing, that I really feel that Richard Worley was protecting the thin blue line. That
they
he was
always
protecting
do.
these officers, he was protecting the department, he was protecting his peers.
Did Mike Mancuso speak out against them yet?
But see, that's the union, and I believe that the union is not necessarily in favor of him. But see, here's why I think that they're not in favor of a Richard Worley. And somebody had to point this out to me at the confirmation hearing. We were talking afterwards, and they said, well, this is really all about that group violence reduction strategy, and that the reason why you see somebody like a Richard Worley coming in is really and truly because they want to neuter down, they want to wash down police commissioner. They don't want a police commissioner that's going to come out and be aggressive. They want really and truly to defund the police and really rely more on
they made sure they got rid of him early, D'Souza.
What?
They had one and they chose to get rid of him early. What's his name?
Daryl D'Souza.
Yep.
See, even Daryl D'Souza, and I brought this up at his confirmation hearing. I was there for his confirmation hearing as well. That's another one who was the shift commander in the Northeast District. And I had questions. What did he know? What didn't he know? Especially at the time, we were just finding out about the consent decree. We were finding out about the gun trace task force. See, my whole thing is what did these folks know? See, I could respect Richard Worley if Richard Worley came out and said, well, I thought I heard some things, some things was being passed around in the department, but I never acted on it. I would appreciate that more than him saying, I got 140 officers and I don't know what's going on. And same thing with Daryl D'Souza was he never came out when we kept questioning him, even on these airwaves, over at WOLP radio. We kept asking him, what did you know when you were in the Northeast District as a shift commander with all the complaints that were coming in from the Northeast District? How come you never acted on it? That's the problem that I have. Nobody acted on the complaints, and then now you see it later on in the consent decree about all these atrocities that were going on in the community, and now we find out about the gun trace task force, which is their crimes are.
I guess he didn't know about that either.
Huh?
I guess he didn't know about that either.
But that's what we keep asking is how could you be within a department and didn't know that there's this force out there that was knock them, sock them, bop them, jump out, by any means necessary, unconstitutional policing. How could you not know when there was all these complaints that were coming in from people that did complain? Like, of course, the average person may not necessarily complain, but Abdullah Salam, who was innocent when they pulled him over and forced him out of his vehicle, he did the right thing. He complained.
But how many police officers lied on these people under his, whether he was a police, when he was a police officer, whether he was just coming in, moving up through the ranks until he finally hit the top? How many police officers under his watch that he knew about, whether he, directly or indirectly heard about, that incarcerated individuals and they lied on them? How many people under and how long he's been there? 27 years.
Right. You didn't hear one complaint. You didn't hear one concern. Not one street baller came to you and said, "Can I pull you to the side?" I do see the.
Now one mother said that. Not one person. Like, you don't check the internal you don't check the internal affairs investigations, like right, nothing. Right. So we need a proactive police commissioner that's going to look at these situations and inside of internal affairs, or inside of what they call it now.
I think it's like the internal investigative unit or something like that. They don't even call it right. They don't even call it internal affairs anymore. Correct.
Right, because they're trying to get away from
the Office of Civil Rights,
the integrity unit.
Right, the integrity unit.
Right. So we need a proactive police commissioner that's going to say, "Hey, let me see, so I can see what my officers are doing, and let me hold them accountable for this. Let me see if they deserve their job or not." You see the I sent the article to you the other day about a police officer that was just locked up for theft. What?
Yeah. I have that article right in front of me.
Yeah, but they don't go to say what he stole. They said theft, and they fired him immediately.
He tried to make it seem like during the confirmation hearing that now there are more officers that are being proactive, that are making the calls, that they could make anonymous calls to report other officers, that may not be, flying right and acting right. I don't know how much of that is true, but he said that is truly changing the dynamics of the police department.
He got to fire the whole force, don't you think?
I don't know. Not every officer is a bad officer, but again, bad officers, like apples, will spoil the bunch, and that's the thing. That's why, we have so many issues in reference to Richard Worley. What did you know? Being around rotten apples. You mean to tell me none of that rottenness touched you, and you didn't have no clue and no knowledge of what was going on in reference to the corruption going on, and that a lot of it perpetuated out of the Northeast, and I don't know. I just think that we're what was the rush of hiring Richard Worley? What was the rush of?
But we still don't know if he have residency in the city.
He doesn't. I said that he still hadn't made residency. They said city council had said that they were going to hold him, to being in compliance. And I almost chuckled, out loud, when the things that went on in city council, the people of Baltimore City deserve better. The people of Baltimore City deserve better. I think the only one that I found out later on that did end up rejecting the vote, and I just am finding that out now, is your girl from Brooklyn, Brooklyn district,
Felicia
Felicia. No,
Porter.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Corey, Senator McCrae's sister.
Oh, Danielle.
Was it Danielle? Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Somebody just made it clear today that there was one person that actually, did the right thing. Truly did the right thing. And actually abstained from actually didn't. I'm not sure if they voted no or they abstained from voting. But from what I understand, they didn't fall for the okie doke. They didn't fall for the okie doke. And I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad that they took a stance. And I'm about to find out right now. Give me a second. I'll pull it up right now. But I find it interesting that there was only one person out of the bunch, that decided to, not fall in with the rest of the status quo votes.
Well, we know that Sharon Green Middleton wasn't there.
Right. And they said that she had an excused absence, and I'm not sure what was going on in reference to.
Was she there or no? I mean, did she vote or no?
No, because she wasn't there. So you have to be present in order to vote. So you have to be present in order to vote. So.
Well, like I said, people need not only pay attention to what people want to say during this political season, they need to pay attention to what they're not saying, what they're not addressing. What are they silent about? And I don't feel like anybody in City Hall right now deserves that seat. Because your job is to work for the people. Your job is to take the issues that the community have, you take it back, and you voice your concerns from that through the through legislation. We're not seeing anything that they're doing. Matter of fact, my Citizen app just went off, and it was a teenager just shot out Brooklyn.
Wow. And there's been a lot of shootings recently out in Brooklyn, so it seems like we're still having issues out in the Brooklyn community. What's his name that sells the coffins?
Kenji Scott.
That's who actually made it a point. Let me see if I can find this post. Because he was, basically talking about everyone. So it was Felicia Porter. So, and it said that she did not vote on the committee to approve and confirm of Richard Worley. Communities have been calling Kenji and told me that she didn't.
You go, girl. I think she's the only one with a set of kahunas down in City Hall as we speak. She's the only one that, her and Glover on certain issues. Her and Glover is the only two that I can, in insurance, that I can truly, honestly say I have, some type of respect for. Other than that, the rest of them has to go.
See, and even folks were pointing this out that, that a lot of this has to do with the GBRS. A bunch of folks really told me that this is really about the group violence reduction strategy, and they're choosing the GVRS over citizens protection. We shouldn't be affirming or confirming anything that was nominated from Commissioner Harrison with the record that I went in there and I handed City Council, their asses to them, to really tell them that I was here the last time and told y'all don't confirm Michael Harrison, that basically Michael Harrison was not this great hope that you guys are thinking of, and I proved it by running down the murder rate over the last 4 years in Baltimore, and really showed them that, has anything really improved over the last 4 years? 2019, the first year he came in, you had 348 murders. 2020, 335 murders. 2021, 337 murders. 2022, 333 murders. And then when you look to date, although they're claiming that we're 20% down in homicides, and I just think that it's just bad marksmen, bad shooters, and we have more young people shooting. I even have a theory that a lot of the folks that were doing the shootings of the past may have had military background, may have came home from Afghanistan, may have came home from Iraq, may have had that weapons training. But a lot of these folks now may be missing their mark. And you got to give credit to shock trauma for saving lives. But there's been a large amount of shootings that could have easily led up to 300 homicides. I don't think we're out of nowhere, out of the clear under a Commissioner Michael Harrison administration. Matter of fact, I think that we are worse off over the last 4 years with the Michael Harrison. So I told City Council, I'm vindicated. I spoke up about Dr. Anthony Batts. I spoke out against Michael Harrison. I'm vindicated, because you could have really brought Deputy Dog in to comply with the consent decree. All the consent decree is following federal order. The consent decree has nothing else to do
But
with
we're not doing that.
And correct, that's another issue. They're not even 100% compliance.
They're nowhere near compliant.
But I think that also too, we have to question Judge Badar's
exactly.
What
is
his
he accepting as? What is
correct.
he accepting as? A line of saying that this is actually happening when it does not show out here nor reflect in these streets, right, these agencies or nothing. It does not right. show it. He's supposed to have a certain amount of police on staff at all times.
He did give a compliment to Commissioner Harrison in reference to,
I don't care about his compliment,
moving forward with the consent decree, but he still said there was a lot more work to be done.
I don't care about him giving flowers. We associate flowers right. with funerals anyway. Right. So I don't want your flowers.
But you have to still question what's going on with Judge Badar, because Judge Badar actually affirmed Richard Worley. He actually spoke out and said that he thought that Richard Worley was the perfect person for the job. Says who?
I bet he did.
Says who?
If it's no other candidates, why wouldn't he say it?
I think there are other candidates, but again, those candidates weren't presented to the people. There wasn't a discussion in reference to it. Who else did the mayor consult with? And I'm telling you that, unfortunately, he didn't consult with.
I'm gonna check my inside forces, and I'm gonna ask them: did they ask anybody? Did they want to apply for the top cop job? Or
they didn't. They didn't. I'm pretty sure there were people that wanted to, but again,
but
at the end of the day, this was an appointment.
Right, but I want to make sure if they were asked.
This was an appointment by somebody that was involved in an organization, a policing organization. We know that Michael Harrison was involved with PERF. It's the meddling of these organizations coming in to our city. I still say that, unfortunately, Michael Harrison was neutered. I know he was neutered because when we told him several times to speak out about the aerial surveillance program, you say one thing on the Cisco meetings, you come to the analyst center and you give them all kinds of praises in reference to the aerial surveillance program, but then you go back behind closed doors and you work to demise and shoot down the program. When you out in public, you won't speak out about it. And when I asked him about it, he said, well, because I got a boss and my boss is right here and I got to listen to what my boss says. Well, to me, then you're neutered. If you can't speak out for something that is for the good of the community and you see the benefits of it for the community, but you're too busy being handled by those involved with the GVRS. And I had somebody pull me up at the council hearing that told me that. Said, Jason, this is all about the GVRS. This has nothing to do with public safety. They're not going to hire a
At
police
the end
commissioner.
of the day, you know, we can talk about defunding the police. We can talk about progressive movements and all this. But at the end of the day, who's one, protecting communities? Two, if everybody in the police department decide, you know what, I had enough, I'm going to leave. And everybody walked out that door at one time.
That's what's happening now.
What's going to happen? What do they have set in place when every police officer leave?
That's
We
what's
know they
happening
can't
now.
protest. We know that they can't protest. We know that they can't what you call it? They can't go on strike. We know they can't do any of this. So what if they all say, you know what? I'm going to take my 25 years and I'm going to bow out right now and walk completely out of that door and leave all those cadets right there. What are we going to do
whole
then?
thing. They talked about it at the confirmation hearing. Recruitment is terrible right now. Recruitment is terrible. They
Who
cannot
wants to be a police officer under these conditions?
Correct.
You cannot tie the police hands. And we're talking about the constitutional rights of not only police officers that's being violated, everybody's constitutional rights are being violated at this point.
Right. But besides being a correctional officer, you know, there's really
they're low in numbers too.
No, I know they're knowing. That's what I'm saying. Besides correction, which we know there's issues inside there are other agencies that you can go to besides the police department and the corrections department, you know, that are cushy, you know, that you don't have to worry. You go work for Homeland Security and go watch some power plants and some power transmission lines, and you know, you can go work for transit and, you know, transit police.
Juvenile justice, like everybody is basically on the ground when it comes down to numbers.
Yeah.
Our time is up, Jason.
Yeah, family. It's sad. It's sad. We have a lot of work to do, and we deserve better. We deserve better. And this election season is going to be so important. We got to stand up. We got to start voting these people out, and we got to start putting people in place that speak for the people.
I say we got to make it make SENSE and not CENTS.
Yep. You're right. Until next time, family, go out there and do something special for someone other than your selfish self. Sacrifice a little bit of your time to the community if you can. All right. And Yolanda, I will speak to you later. Until next week, family, same time. We will try to be here next week. And hopefully we can bring a guest or two on to talk about some of the issues going on in our city. But until next week, family, be blessed, be safe.